The Kaelerian princess arrived on a Tuesday. Jackson remembered this because Tuesdays at EarthMed Hospital 92 were always impossibly quiet. So quiet that the malfunctioning ventilation system's endless wheezing became the soundtrack to his shifts. He'd been organizing supply cabinets, a task far beneath his qualifications, but perfectly aligned with his current status. Disgraced physician, professional disappointment, the hospital's most educated janitor. Dr. Reeves. Dr. Patel burst through the door, her usually composed demeanor fractured by what appeared to be genuine panic, a rarity in a woman who had once performed emergency surgery during an oxygen leak without missing a beat. Emergency landing bay, now. Diplomatic emergency. Jackson raised an eyebrow. Diplomatic emergencies go to Central, not to the place where medical careers come to die. Not this one. This one's off the books. Patel's voice dropped. Kaelerian Royal Transport. Systems failure. Princess on board. Dying. They can't make it to Kaelerian space. And they chose us? Hospital 92? The place so underfunded our MRI machine occasionally picks up radio signals from the 1940s? They didn't choose us. They had no choice. Patel was already walking, tablet in hand. Their medical team tried everything. Their systems are failing. And politically, this can't exist. A Kaelerian royal dying in human space? Interspecies relations are bad enough. Jackson followed, mind racing. The Kaelerians, a blue-skinned humanoid species with a technological edge over humanity in almost every field, especially medicine, aristocratic, isolationist, and absolutely, positively convinced of their superiority to humans. I don't understand. They'll reject our treatment. Their medical tech is centuries ahead. And yet, Patel cut him off. She's dying anyway. You're what I've got, Reeves. Everyone else is in surgery or off-site. The emergency bay doors hissed open, revealing organized chaos. A sleek, silver Kaelerian shuttle sat awkwardly tilted on the landing pad, its seamless hull now marred by emergency docking clamps. Two tall, blue-skinned figures in ornate armor flanked a medical pod, their posture simultaneously defensive and desperate. Inside the translucent pod lay a young woman whose blue skin had faded to a sickly periwinkle. Her breathing was shallow, her eyes closed, her long silver hair spread beneath her like spilled mercury. Jackson approached carefully, medical scanner already in hand. The guards tensed. "State your credentials," the taller one demanded. "Jackson Reeves, Chief Medical Officer." He lied smoothly. Patel shot him a look but said nothing. "We do not typically allow human physicians to—" "Your princess is experiencing multi-system failure consistent with biological toxicity," Jackson interrupted, reading his scanner. "Her immune system is attacking itself. Whatever your physicians tried has only accelerated the process." The guards exchanged glances. The shorter one spoke, his voice strained. "We have tried every known Kaelerian treatment protocol. Nothing works." Jackson leaned closer to the pod, examining the princess's vital signs. "What's her name?" "That is not relevant to treatment," the guard replied stiffly. "Actually, it is. I need to know what to call her when I'm trying to keep her conscious. Unless you'd prefer I use, 'Hey you, blue girl,' during resuscitation?" The taller guard's hand twitched toward his weapon, but the other placed a restraining hand on his arm. "Her name is Abigail." Jackson blinked. "That's surprisingly human. Her full ceremonial name is unpronounceable in your language. Abigail is her diplomatic designation." Jackson nodded and turned to Patel. "I need isolation room 3, and tell Aaron to prep the advanced toxicology kit." As they wheeled the pod through the sterile corridors, Jackson studied the princess's medical readouts. Her condition was unlike anything he'd seen. A progressive system shutdown that seemed both organic and somehow programmed, as if her body were following instructions to die. "This isn't a natural illness," he muttered to Patel as they transferred Abigail to the treatment bed. "This looks like deliberate poisoning." Something engineered. The guards overheard. Impossible. Her Royal Highness has been under constant protection. And yet, Jackson gestured to the princess's failing body. Here we are. The taller guard stepped forward. I am Torian, Royal Protector. If what you say is true, this is an act of war. Right now, it's an act of medicine, Jackson replied, already attaching monitoring equipment. And I need space to work. You can stay, but stand back. Dr. Patel will monitor her condition while I analyze the toxin. The next 6 hours passed in a blur of tests, calculations, and increasingly desperate attempts to stabilize the princess. Every conventional treatment failed. Her immune system continued its inexplicable self-destruction, rejecting standard protocols. It's as if her body doesn't recognize the treatments as helpful, Jackson said, staring at the latest test results. Like there's a fundamental incompatibility. He was exhausted, running on synthesized caffeine and professional stubbornness. The guards remained statue-like at the periphery, their stoicism betrayed only by the occasional tight exchange of glances as Abigail's vitals continued to decline. At hour 7, as Jackson was recalibrating yet another failed treatment attempt, Abigail's eyes fluttered open. They were startlingly violet, a deeper shade than the typical Kalyrian blue, and currently focused directly on him. Who are you? Her voice was barely audible, each word clearly painful. Jackson Reeves, I'm your doctor. Human doctor. Her expression shifted to one of disbelief, then disdain. Am I that far gone? You're at EarthMed Hospital 92. Your shuttle had to make an emergency landing. She tried to sit up, failed, then settled for turning her head toward her guards. Torian, why have you permitted this? Forgive me, Your Highness. We had no choice. Your royal physician's treatments were unsuccessful. Her gaze returned to Jackson, evaluating. You won't succeed either. Our physiology is beyond your understanding. Jackson leaned closer. Your physiology is being systematically destroyed by a toxin specifically designed to kill you, Your Highness. And while I may not understand every nuance of Kalyrian biology, I recognize an assassination attempt when I see one. The word hung in the air like a live grenade. Torian stepped forward, hand on his ceremonial weapon. That is a grave accusation, human. It's a medical observation, Jackson countered. The toxin is too specific, too precisely targeted to her unique biology. This wasn't random exposure. Someone wants her dead. Abigail's eyes widened, then narrowed with calculation. Political implications. Must contact my father. Communications blackout, the other guard said. For your protection, Highness. Standard protocol. Jackson watched the interaction carefully. Something wasn't right. The toxin was spreading through Abigail's system with unnatural precision, almost as if... Your guards, he said suddenly. How long have they been with you? Always, she whispered. Royal protectors, since birth. Jackson nodded slowly, then turned to Patel. I need a moment with my colleague. Medical consultation. He pulled Patel to the far corner of the room, speaking in hushed tones. The toxin's delivery system is still active. It's not a one-time exposure. It's continuing to release into her system. Internal implant? Patel suggested. No. Nothing showing on scans. I think... He glanced at the guards. I think it might be proximity-based. Someone close to her. Patel's eyes widened. The guards? They've been screened, surely. Maybe, but I need to test a theory. Can you get them out of here? Any excuse? Patel nodded and approached the guards with professional authority. Gentlemen, we need to conduct a full decontamination of the princess's exposure pathway. Protocol requires you to undergo screening as well, since you've been in proximity. The guards exchanged glances. We cannot leave Her Highness unprotected. Hospital security will stand guard, Patel assured them. And you'll be just outside. It's temporary, but necessary for her treatment. After a tense negotiation, the guards reluctantly agreed to wait outside, while Patel ostensibly prepared a decontamination chamber. The moment they left, Jackson moved to Abigail's side. Listen carefully. I think the toxin is being continuously delivered by someone close to you. Your vital signs improved by 2% the moment they stepped outside. Abigail's eyes widened. Impossible. They are loyal. Maybe, or maybe not. Either way. I need to try something unconventional. Kaelerian medicine is focused on biochemical precision, correct? Perfect biological harmony? She nodded weakly. That's why your treatments failed. This toxin doesn't just attack your body. It's using your body's regulatory systems against you. The more precisely your physicians tried to correct it, the more information it gathered to counteract their efforts. Then, I am beyond help. Not necessarily. Jackson pulled up her latest scan results. Human medicine is different. We're messy, imprecise. We sometimes have to shock the system rather than finesse it. And right now, your immune system needs to be confused, not directed. What do you propose? Something no Kaelerian doctor would ever try. Jackson reached into a drawer and pulled out a small device. Emotional stimulation therapy. Your species' immune response is linked to your emotional state, much more directly than in humans. The toxin is using that pathway, keeping you emotionally flat to suppress immune response. Abigail looked skeptical, but desperation won out. Proceed. Jackson activated the device, which began emitting a low, complex melody. He adjusted several controls, watching her vital signs carefully. Music, she whispered. Just the beginning. This is calibrated to activate memory centers. He produced a small vial of liquid. And this contains synthetic emotional triggers, scents and pheromones that should bypass the toxin suppression. For the next hour, Jackson methodically introduced a series of sensory inputs, sounds, scents, tactile sensations, while monitoring Abigail's responses. It was unorthodox, more intuitive than scientific, but slowly, her readings began to stabilize. It's working, he said, allowing himself a small smile. Your immune system is beginning to recognize the invasion pattern. Abigail's color had improved slightly, the periwinkle giving way to a truer blue. How did you know? I didn't. But I've seen how Kaelerians approach medicine. Clinical, detached, perfect. Your emotional regulation is part of your healing. The toxin used that against you, keeping you calm, resigned, suppressing the natural fight response. You made me angry, she observed. Among other things, anger, hope, determination, emotional states that trigger survival responses. She studied him with new interest. Perhaps there is more to human medicine than we acknowledge. Jackson checked her latest readings. You're stabilizing, but not out of danger. The toxin is still present, still active, and I believe its source is still nearby. Torian has been with me for decades, she said, but doubt had crept into her voice. Then perhaps it's not deliberate. Perhaps he's carrying it unwittingly. Jackson frowned at the monitor. I need more time to fully neutralize the toxin, but your guards will be returning soon. What do you suggest? Jackson considered their options. We need to separate you from them while continuing treatment, which means... He looked at her with sudden intensity. We need to make them think you're dead. A deception. A temporary one. Just long enough to complete your treatment and identify the source of the toxin. Abigail's expression hardened with resolve. Do it! When the guards returned, they found Jackson performing emergency resuscitation on the princess's seemingly lifeless form. Monitors screamed warnings. Vital signs plummeted. And Patel stood by with a grave expression. What happened? Torian demanded, rushing forward. Jackson continued compressions, his face a mask of professional determination. Systemic collapse. The toxin reached her central nervous system. After a convincingly desperate attempt at resuscitation, Jackson stepped back, shoulders slumped in defeat. Time of death, 02:17. The guards stood in stunned silence, their usually impassive faces transformed by shock and, Jackson noted with interest, varying degrees of other emotions. Torian displayed genuine grief, while the other guard seemed more concerned with practical matters. "This cannot be made public," the second guard said. "The political implications." "Her body must be returned to Kalira immediately," Torian interrupted. "Royal protocols must be observed." "I'll need to prepare her for transport," Jackson said. "And complete documentation for our records. Dr. Patel will assist you with the diplomatic paperwork." As Patel led the guards away, Jackson quickly transferred Abigail, very much alive but sedated, to a concealed medical pod. Hospital 92 might be underfunded, but its status as a quarantine facility meant it had extensive isolation chambers and hidden transfer routes. He moved her to a secure room in the hospital's rarely used administrative wing, setting up portable monitoring equipment and continuing the emotional stimulation therapy. When she regained consciousness an hour later, her color had improved significantly. "It worked," she said, sounding surprised. "The deception. Yes. Your treatment. Partially." Jackson adjusted her medication. "Your immune system is fighting back now, but we still need to identify and neutralize the source." "You truly believe it's one of my guards?" "I believe the toxin's delivery system is somehow connected to them. Your readings improve when they're not present." Abigail was silent for a moment, processing. "There is an interplanetary conference scheduled in 2 days. I was to represent Kalira. If this is political, then whoever is behind it may have plans beyond your assassination," Jackson finished. "Do you have enemies who would benefit from disrupting the conference?" "Too many to count." She attempted to sit up, stronger now but still weak. "There are factions within Kalirian society opposed to any cooperation with other species, particularly humans. My father has been pushing for limited collaborative efforts. So removing you, the diplomatic face of Kalira, would send a message and potentially trigger more isolationist policies," she agreed. "But to implicate my own guards, it would require access to the highest levels of our government." Jackson helped her adjust her position. "How well do you know them? Torian and the other one?" "Torian has served my family for 30 years. He practically raised me." Her voice softened with genuine affection. "The other is Verex, newer to my personal guard but from an impeccable lineage of royal servants." As they spoke, Jackson's mind was working through the puzzle. The toxin was sophisticated, specifically tailored to Abigail's biology, and had defeated the most advanced Kalirian medical treatments. "This level of bioengineering is beyond most assassins," he mused. "It would require intimate knowledge of your specific physiology, access to royal medical records, and advanced biotech capabilities." Abigail's eyes widened with sudden realization. "The annual examination." "What?" 3 months ago. I underwent my annual royal examination. All members of the royal family are required to submit to comprehensive medical assessment. It's tradition, but also security, ensuring we haven't been compromised. "Who performs these examinations?" "The Royal Medical Council. 5 of our most trusted physicians." Her expression darkened. "One of whom was recently appointed, Dr. Naren. He has connections to the purist faction." Jackson leaned forward. "Did anything unusual happen during the examination?" "Nothing I recall, but," she frowned. "Naren insisted on performing additional genetic screening, claiming concern over some minor anomalies." "That could be it," Jackson said. Excitement building. "A genetic marker, introduced during the examination, programmed to interact with a trigger compound. The trigger could be something simple, a particular nutrient, a specific frequency, even a pheromone." Something my guards might carry without knowing, Abigail concluded. Exactly. Not the guards themselves, but something they've been given. A new uniform component, perhaps, or a ceremonial item. They were interrupted by a soft knock at the door. Jackson tensed, but relaxed when Erin, the hospital's robotic nurse, entered. Your vital signs are being monitored from the regular ward, the robot said, its synthesized voice carrying a surprisingly sarcastic tone. Very clever, Dr. Reeves, faking a royal death. That won't have any repercussions at all. It's temporary, Jackson defended, and necessary. Of course. Just like your last necessary protocol violation that got you exiled to this dump. Erin moved efficiently around the room, setting up additional equipment. The guards are preparing a transport shuttle. You have approximately 3 hours before they expect a body. That's not enough time, Jackson muttered. It never is, Erin replied dryly. Also, Dr. Patel asked me to inform you that the conference Princess Abigail mentioned is actually being held here, at the Central Government Complex, just 15 kilometers from this hospital. Jackson and Abigail exchanged alarmed looks. Tomorrow? She asked. Day after tomorrow, Erin confirmed. Apparently, it's why your shuttle was in this sector to begin with. Jackson paced the small room. If this is a coordinated attack, then your death might not be the end of it. The conference could still be a target. I need to be there, Abigail said firmly. If only to warn them. You're still recovering from being poisoned. And yet, I must go. Her voice carried the unmistakable command of royalty. Help me, Dr. Reeves, or I shall proceed without you. Jackson sighed, recognizing the futility of argument. Fine. But we do this carefully. First, we need to figure out exactly what triggered the toxin. Then, we need a way to get you to the conference without your guards recognizing you. And without triggering the toxin again, Abigail added. Erin, who had been silently monitoring their exchange, spoke up. If I may offer a suggestion, perhaps a comparative analysis of the guards' equipment might reveal the trigger. We'd need access to their belongings, Jackson pointed out. Which I have, Erin replied smugly. Standard decontamination protocol requires all personal items to be surrendered for scanning. Their ceremonial weapons, communication devices, and various tokens are currently in Quarantine Locker B. Jackson grinned at the robot. Erin, has anyone ever told you you're a surprisingly devious machine? I prefer resourceful, the robot replied. Now, shall we begin the analysis before your princess is officially declared dead, and this becomes an interplanetary incident? The next few hours were spent in painstaking examination of the guards' possessions. Jackson used the hospital's limited equipment creatively, while Abigail provided insights into Kaelerian technology and customs. It was Abigail who finally identified the likely culprit, a ceremonial seal each guard carried, recently reissued to all royal staff. These were distributed after my examination, she explained, holding the small, intricately designed medallion. A new design to commemorate my father's 50th year of rule. Jackson carefully scanned the object. There's something embedded in the metal, a synthetic compound that releases a particular molecular sequence when in proximity to body heat. A compound that would be harmless to anyone except me, Abigail realized. Activated by the genetic marker Naren introduced during my examination. Exactly. The perfect assassination method, slow, seemingly natural, and impossible to trace back to its source. Jackson set the seal aside. Now we know what to avoid, but we still need a way to get you to the conference. I have an idea about that, Abigail said, a hint of mischief in her eyes. How do you feel about becoming a royal physician, Dr. Reeves? The plan was audacious, but perhaps just crazy enough to work. Abigail would disguise herself as a human medical assistant, accompanying Jackson, who would pose as a Kaelerian medical consultant sent to replace the deceased princess as Kaelyra's representative. Kalyrians are notoriously private about their governmental structure. Abigail explained. Few outside our world would know exactly who might be sent as a replacement. Your unusual height for a human, and my knowledge of our protocols, should make the deception plausible enough for a brief appearance. Brief being the operative word. Jackson emphasized, just long enough to identify the true conspirators and warn the conference leadership. With Aaron's help, they prepared their disguises. Jackson's involved subtle alterations to mimic Kalyrian features, tinted skin, elongated facial prosthetics, and colored contact lenses. For Abigail, the transformation was more dramatic, dulling her blue skin to a more human tone and concealing her distinctive silver hair. "Will Torian and Varix be at the conference?" Jackson asked, as they made final adjustments. "Undoubtedly. Royal protectors would accompany any Kalyrian representative." Abigail's expression grew troubled. "I still cannot believe Torian could be involved. He has been like family." "Maybe he's not," Jackson said gently. "Maybe he's just an unwitting carrier. We won't know until we see how events unfold." As dawn approached, they finalized their plan. Dr. Patel had arranged for a sealed medical transport, ostensibly carrying Abigail's body, which would instead take them to the central government complex. "One last treatment before we go," Jackson said, preparing a final dose of immunostimulants. "This should keep your system fighting off any residual toxin." As he administered the medication, their eyes met. Something unspoken passed between them, an acknowledgement of the strange circumstances that had brought them together, and perhaps something more. "Thank you," Abigail said softly, "for saving my life when you had every reason not to care about a Kalyrian royal." "I'm a doctor," Jackson replied simply. "Even at Earth's worst hospital, that still means something." The central government complex was an imposing structure of glass and steel, its architecture deliberately incorporating elements from various planetary cultures. Security was tight, with representatives from a dozen worlds moving through checkpoints with varying degrees of diplomatic impatience. Jackson and Abigail passed through with minimal scrutiny. Their medical credentials and the solemn occasion of transporting a royal body granting them expedited processing. The main conference hall was already filling with delegates when they slipped in through a side entrance. "There," Abigail whispered, gesturing subtly toward a cluster of Kalyrian officials. "Torian and Varix are with the Kalyrian delegation, and that's Dr. Naren beside them." Jackson followed her gaze. The physician was tall, even for a Kalyrian, with severe features and an air of cold authority. As they watched, he leaned close to one of the other Kalyrian delegates, speaking with intense focus. "We need to get closer," Jackson murmured. "See if we can hear what they're discussing." They moved carefully through the crowd, maintaining their disguises. As they approached the Kalyrian delegation, Jackson could see Torian's face clearly. The guard looked genuinely bereaved, his usual stoicism cracked by what appeared to be genuine grief. Varix, by contrast, seemed alert and watchful, his attention focused on the various security measures around the hall. Naren was now engaged in conversation with a human diplomat, his manner pleasant but reserved. "Something's not right," Abigail whispered. "Naren seems too calm. If he orchestrated my assassination as part of a larger plan, he should be more focused on whatever comes next." Jackson nodded, scanning the hall with a physician's eye for detail. "The security seems standard. No obvious threats." "Unless the threat isn't physical," Abigail suggested. "What if this is about information? A false announcement, perhaps, or a manipulated agreement?" Before Jackson could respond, a hush fell over the assembly as the conference moderator, a tall, dignified human, approached the central podium. "Delegates, representatives, honored guests. Before we begin today's proceedings, I must acknowledge a somber development. We have been informed that Princess Abigail of Kalyra has passed away due to unexpected medical complications. The Calirian delegation has requested a moment of silence in her honor. The hall grew quiet. Jackson watched the reactions carefully. Most delegates displayed appropriate diplomatic solemnity, but he was more interested in the Calirians. Torian's grief seemed to deepen, while Naren's expression was a perfect mask of sorrow. Too perfect, perhaps. It was Varix whose reaction caught Jackson's attention. The guard's eyes were not downcast in mourning, but scanning the room methodically, as if searching for something, or someone. As the moment of silence concluded, the moderator continued. In light of this tragedy, Dr. Naren of Kalira will address the assembly regarding the continuation of negotiations. Naren approached the podium with measured steps. Thank you, moderator. This is indeed a dark day for Kalira. Princess Abigail embodied our hopes for cautious cooperation with other worlds. His voice was smooth, persuasive. In her absence, I have been authorized to inform this assembly that Kalira will be implementing a temporary isolation protocol. For security reasons, we must investigate the circumstances of the princess's death before proceeding with any new agreements. Murmurs spread through the delegates. Jackson leaned closer to Abigail. He's using your death to justify cutting ties. Classic purist strategy, she agreed, her voice tight with anger. Create a security crisis, then use it to justify isolation. Naren continued, his speech growing more emphatic. Furthermore, preliminary findings suggest possible involvement of non-Kalirian factors in this tragedy. Until a full investigation is complete, all existing cooperation protocols will be suspended. He's lying, Abigail hissed. This is a complete reversal of my father's policies. Jackson watched as Naren produced a small device from his pocket. To demonstrate Kalira's commitment to transparency, I offer this data crystal containing Princess Abigail's final diplomatic directives, recorded shortly before her passing. Alarm bells rang in Jackson's mind. That's not possible. You were unconscious until you were in my care. He's going to present false evidence, Abigail realized. Something he created to support the purists' agenda. We need to stop him now, Jackson said, already moving forward. But before they could act, something unexpected happened. Torian stepped forward, placing a restraining hand on Naren's arm. Dr. Naren, the guard said, his voice carrying clearly in the hushed hall. I was with Her Highness until the end. She gave no such directives. Naren's composure slipped momentarily. You forget yourself, Protector. These matters are beyond your authority. My authority is to protect the royal family and their true wishes, Torian replied steadily. These are not the princess's words. The tension between the two Kalirians was palpable. Jackson nudged Abigail. Torian's not part of the conspiracy. He's challenging Naren. Then who? Abigail's words trailed off as her gaze fixed on Varix. The younger guard had moved to a control panel near the hall's perimeter. His movements subtle but purposeful. Varix, she whispered. He's doing something with the environmental systems. Jackson followed her gaze. Professional instincts triggering alarm. If they've engineered a toxin specific to you, they could have created variants for other species. A targeted bioweapon released through the ventilation system. I need to reveal myself, Abigail said firmly. It's the only way to stop this. It could also get you killed, Jackson warned. If Varix sees you're alive. It's a risk I must take. Her violet eyes met his, resolute. Help me reach the podium. Jackson nodded, understanding the stakes. They began moving toward the front of the hall, but their progress was interrupted by a sudden commotion. Varix had abandoned all pretense of subtlety and was now openly manipulating the environmental controls, while Torian attempted to restrain him. Security breach! Someone shouted, and the hall erupted into chaos. In the confusion, Jackson and Abigail pushed forward, but they were separated by the panicking crowd. Jackson lost sight of her momentarily, then spotted her, making her way determinedly toward the podium. Simultaneously, He saw Varix break free from Torian's grasp and draw a weapon. The guard's eyes scanned the crowd with unnatural precision, then fixed on Abigail's disguised form with impossible recognition. He shouldn't be able to identify her through that disguise, Jackson muttered to himself. Unless... Understanding dawned with horrifying clarity. Varix moved with the fluid certainty of someone, or something, following a program. His eyes tracked Abigail with machine-like focus. He's not human, Jackson realized. Not entirely. Pushing through the crowd, Jackson intercepted Varix moments before the guard could reach Abigail. They collided with bruising force, Jackson using his human bulk to knock the more slender Kael'rian off balance. You, Varix said, recognition flashing in his eyes. The human doctor. You should not be here. Neither should you, Jackson retorted, grappling with the guard. What are you, some kind of bioconstruct? Varix's expression shifted, becoming eerily blank. I am the future of Kael'ria, pure, uncompromised by emotion or weakness. They struggled, Varix's strength surprising despite his lean frame. Around them, security personnel were attempting to restore order, while delegates fled toward the exits. Near the podium, Abigail had reached Naren. The physician's shock at seeing her alive was genuine, his carefully constructed plan visibly crumbling. Impossible, he gasped. The toxin was perfect. Not as perfect as human imperfection, she replied, her disguise now partially removed, revealing her true identity to the remaining delegates. Your plan has failed, Naren. Meanwhile, Jackson was losing his fight with Varix. The guard, or whatever he was, possessed unnatural strength and reflexes. A precisely aimed blow sent Jackson stumbling backward, momentarily dazed. Varix advanced on him, weapon raised. You have interfered with the purification of Kael'ria. Our species must evolve beyond emotional weakness, beyond the flawed leadership of traditionalists like Abigail. That's your plan? Jackson asked, buying time as he regained his footing. Replace the royal family with... what? Synthetic copies? Not copies. Improvements. Varix's voice was coldly passionate. Biological intelligence freed from emotional contamination. Perfect leaders for a perfect society. There's nothing perfect about a society without emotion, Jackson countered. Without empathy, compassion, even anger. You're just machines pretending to be alive. Outdated human philosophy, Varix dismissed. Your species clings to emotional chaos, while we ascend to logical perfection. As they spoke, Jackson had been subtly reaching into his medical kit. Now his fingers closed around a small device, the same emotional stimulator he'd used to treat Abigail. You know what's ironic? He said, activating the device at its highest setting. For all your talk of perfection, you're still vulnerable to the very emotions you despise. The device emitted a focused pulse of sensory triggers, sounds, pheromones, and neural stimulants specifically calibrated to Kael'rian physiology. Varix staggered, his artificial composure fracturing as unexpected emotional responses cascaded through his system. What have you done? He gasped, clutching his head. Given you a taste of humanity, Jackson replied, pressing his advantage by increasing the device's output. Emotions aren't weakness, they're information, vital feedback your perfect system ignores. Varix's movements became erratic, his programming conflicting with the flood of emotional input. Jackson maintained the barrage, recognizing that the synthetic Kael'rian was experiencing the equivalent of an emotional overload. Across the hall, Abigail had commandeered the podium, addressing the remaining delegates with royal authority. I am Princess Abigail of Kael'ria, very much alive despite the efforts of those who would use my death to further their isolationist agenda. Dr. Naren and his accomplices have attempted not only regicide, but also to sabotage this peace conference. As she spoke, Torian had subdued Naren, the physician's plans collapsing around him. Security forces were now converging on Varix, who had collapsed to his knees, systems overwhelmed by Jackson's improvised emotional assault. The crisis contained. Jackson made his way to Abigail's side. "You okay?" She nodded, though her color had paled slightly from the exertion. "Better than Varix, it seems." "He's not a he," Jackson explained quietly. "He's some kind of biological construct. Artificial intelligence housed in an organic body, designed to mimic Kalyrians, but without emotional processing." "A synthetic Kalyrian?" Abigail looked horrified. "That's heretical. And apparently Naren's vision for your species' future." Jackson watched as security personnel secured the fallen Varix. Perfect. Logical beings uncorrupted by messy emotions like compassion, or love. "Or loyalty," Abigail added, her gaze finding Torian, who stood guard over a restrained Naren. "Some emotions serve us well." The aftermath unfolded with surprising efficiency. The conference was temporarily suspended, while security teams swept the facility for additional threats. Abigail was escorted to a private chamber for medical evaluation, performed by Jackson at her insistence, while Kalyrian authorities were notified of the plot against the royal family. "How are you feeling?" Jackson asked as he examined her, genuine concern evident in his voice. "Physically, improving." She managed a small smile. "Emotionally, that's more complicated. Finding out you were targeted by your own people, that one of your guards was an artificial construct. Yeah, I'd say complicated covers it." She was quiet for a moment. "It's more than that." Naren confessed his entire plan to the Security Council. He believes Kalyria has grown weak through emotional connection. His research focused on creating a purer form of our species, beings who look and act like us, but make decisions based solely on logic and racial superiority. "And Varix was the prototype," Jackson concluded. "Yes, but what truly disturbs me is that his plan nearly succeeded." Her violet eyes met his with unsettling intensity. "Because he understood something fundamental about our society. We have become so obsessed with perfection, with superiority, that we've forgotten the value of imperfection." Jackson finished his examination and sat beside her. "Imperfection is underrated. Without it, you don't get adaptation, creativity, or growth." "Or human doctors with unorthodox methods," she added with a hint of warmth. "Speaking of which," Jackson hesitated, then continued, "there's something else I discovered during your treatment. Something about your physiology that doesn't make sense." Abigail tensed. "Explain." "When I was treating you, I noticed anomalies in your genetic structure, subtle discrepancies that shouldn't exist in a natural-born Kalyrian. At first, I thought they were artifacts of the poisoning, but they're too consistent, too deliberate." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying there's something in your DNA that looks like an encoded message, a data package hidden within your genetic structure." Jackson met her gaze directly. "Abigail, I don't think you're exactly who you think you are." 3 days later, they stood on the observation deck of a Kalyrian diplomatic vessel orbiting Earth. The crisis had been resolved, the conspiracy exposed, and relations between Earth and Kalyra had emerged stronger rather than weaker, largely due to Abigail's diplomatic skill and newfound appreciation for human resourcefulness. "My father has requested your presence on Kalyra," she told Jackson, watching Earth rotate slowly beneath them. Apparently, saving his daughter's life earns even a human doctor some royal consideration. "And what about you?" Jackson asked. "Will you return to your royal duties?" Abigail's expression was contemplative. "Not as before. I've requested release from direct succession obligations." "Because of what we discovered?" The genetic analysis had revealed a stunning truth. Abigail was not a natural-born princess, but a sophisticated biological creation, a safety measure implemented by the royal family generations ago. In times of political instability, a copy of the true heir would be created and raised as royal. serving as both decoy and potential replacement. Partly, she acknowledged, learning I was created rather than born. It changes things, but not in the way you might expect. How so? It's freed me, she said simply. If I'm not bound by royal blood, then my value comes from my choices, my actions, not my genetic inheritance. Jackson smiled. Sounds dangerously human. Perhaps humanity has some redeeming qualities after all. She turned to face him fully. I've been appointed special envoy to Earth, focusing on medical exchange programs. It seems my unique experience with human healthcare has qualified me for the position. Congratulations, Jackson said warmly. Earth's worst hospital will be honored to collaborate. About that, Abigail's tone turned serious. Your hospital designation has been upgraded in recognition of your service, and your previous disciplinary issues have been expunged from your record. Jackson blinked in surprise. Just like that? A royal pardon? Royal gratitude, she corrected. Though I should warn you, it comes with strings attached. Specifically, a request for you to serve as medical liaison between our worlds. Working with you? Working with me. Her smile held promise. If that's acceptable. Jackson considered the unexpected turn his life had taken, from disgraced physician to interspecies diplomat, all because a dying princess had been sent to the worst possible hospital. If I accept, he said, what exactly would I be to you? Not your doctor anymore, not quite a colleague. Abigail stepped closer, her voice soft. If I'm not a real princess, what am I to you? Jackson smiled, the answer coming easily. The only patient who ever survived treatment at Earth's worst hospital. I'd say that makes you pretty special. Her laughter, unrestrained and genuine, filled the observation deck, a sound that would have been unthinkable from a Kalirian royal just days ago. I accept those terms, Dr. Reeves, she said, extending her hand in the human gesture she had learned from him. As their hands met, Jackson felt the slight but distinct difference in her skin temperature, a reminder of their differences, but no longer a barrier between them. Whatever came next would be uncharted territory for both their species. And that imperfection, that uncertainty, was exactly what made it worth exploring.